Let's go to 5 headlines. Well, we begin, of course, with the Trump supporter in Portland apparently executed in cold blood on Saturday, that is. A caravan of Trump supporters and Blue Lives Matter supporters went into Portland to counter-demonstrate. Much has been made of the fact that they were shooting paintballs at the BLM and Antifa people, using pepper spray in some cases, and that's true. But every video I've seen of the paintball and pepper spray being deployed begins with someone in the Antifa/BLM crowd throwing something at them or using some other weapon against them. So in any case, it was a volatile environment. And then the shooting. The victim's name is Aaron Danielson. The man police are investigating for the killing is Michael Forrest Reinl. A few pieces of footage have emerged from this, none of them very clear. The first shows, in the distance, in the dark, one man walk up to another, and then you see the gun go off, and the guy who pulled the trigger runs in the other direction. It does not appear at all to be self-defense in that video. It appears to be execution, plain and simple. But the most revealing video is actually one that doesn't show the shooting at all. Instead, it's what you hear that matters. So I'm going to play that for you now. And again, you're not going to be able to really see anything. It doesn't matter what you see. Just listen. Listen for the words that you hear.
Hey, we got a couple right here. He's here. He's pulling it out. Right here. You okay?
Yeah, that is one of the most chilling videos I've ever seen, and it doesn't even show the shooting itself. You can clearly hear someone say, "Hey, we've got another one here. We've got another one. We've got another one here. We've got someone right here." And then someone else says, "Right here," and then bang, bang, you hear the guns. By all indications, they targeted this man and executed him in cold blood. First-degree murder and political terrorism. And the guy who did it should be federal charges. Ship him off to Guantanamo Bay, as far as I'm concerned. He is not only a murderer but a terrorist. This is an act of terrorism. Now, needless to say, the leftists who are apoplectic about Kyle Rittenhouse, in spite of the fact that it appeared in his case to actually be self-defense, they couldn't find it in themselves to condemn this political execution with nearly the same fervor or really condemn it at all in a lot of cases. This includes, of course, the rotting cucumber of a mayor, Ted Wheeler, who spent more time in his press conference yesterday condemning Donald Trump than the actual guy who pulled the trigger. And also Joe Biden, who issued a statement that really flies in the face of all the stuff we hear about him being a decent guy and just a wonderful guy. The Democrat convention was just 4 days of what a wonderful, great guy he is. Here are his favorite ice cream toppings, what a great guy he is. Well, you see, not just in this, but you see illustrated in this statement, which I'll read to you in a second, the fact that Joe Biden is, among other things, an incredible moral coward. So let me play this for you, or not play it, let me read it for you, in fact. Here's the statement from Joe Biden. This statement, by the way, of course, is being praised by the media as being just a wonderful, wonderful statement, very calming and all of that. Great leadership here. Well, you tell me what you think. The deadly violence we saw overnight in Portland is unacceptable. Shooting in the streets of a great American city is unacceptable. Oh, he called it, it's unacceptable. Great. Okay. Well, that's a strong condemnation, isn't it? Yes. Walking up to a guy and executing him on the street is unacceptable. I condemn this violence unequivocally. I condemn violence of every kind by anyone, whether on the left or right. And I challenge Donald Trump to do the same. It does not matter if you find the political views of your opponents abhorrent. Any loss of life is a tragedy. Today, there is another family grieving in America, and Jill and I offer our deepest condolences. We must not become a country at war with ourselves, a country that accepts the killing of fellow Americans who do not agree with you, a country that vows vengeance towards one another. But this is the America that President Trump wants us to be, the America he believes we are. As a country, we must condemn the incitement of hate and resentment that led to this deadly clash. Listen to that part. Let me read it again. As a country, we must condemn the incitement of hate and resentment that led to this deadly clash. It is not a peaceful protest when you go out spoiling for a fight. What does President Trump think will happen when he continues to insist on fanning the flames of hate and division in our society and using the politics of fear to whip up his supporters? He is recklessly encouraging the violence. And then he goes on a little bit more. The rest of it is just attacking President Trump. Okay, so He spends most of this condemning President Trump. I don't think there is even in this statement really a clear and very specific and harsh condemnation of the killing itself. He calls it unacceptable, but he does it he's using a passive voice, which is a common trick that leftists are pulling now, and we'll get to another example of that in just a second. But he's using a passive voice, and he's kind of speaking in general terms. Oh, a deadly clash. This wasn't a clash. It wasn't the deadly moment was not a clash. This was just a guy walking down the street and he was shot in the head. It's not a clash. That's murder. But he's condemning the incitement and hate and resentment that led to this. Now, yeah, I agree that there's a lot of incitement and hate and resentment leading to this, but that's happening from BLM and Antifa and Democrats. And I know that, I basically just said the same thing 3 times. Sorry for the redundancy. That's happening from them. But that's not what he means. He's saying the people that were there were inciting the hatred and resentment. So this is victim blaming on top of it. At a minimum, this is moral cowardice from Joe Biden, who I'm sorry, is not the great, decent guy that they make him out to be. I wish he was. I really wish he was. But he's not. Number 2, since we're on the subject of the impossibility of policing these days, here are a few exhibits to present for your consideration. Not that you need any more, we've seen a lot, but just some of the latest, okay, on that topic. First, this is a BLM leader in D.C. openly calling for police and other public officials to be murdered. And this is being said into a megaphone in the middle of the city. Anyway, take a listen.
I'm at the point where I'm ready to put these police in the fucking grave. I'm at the point where I want to burn the fucking White House down. I want to take it to the senators. I want to take it to the Congress. I want to take the fight to them. And at the end of the day, if they ain't gonna hear us, we burn them the down. I'm one that talk real shit. I talk it in New York, and I talk it in D.C. The same way I police up in New York, I cops up here in D.C. The same way I bust police in the head in New York, I bust police in the head in D.C. Now, it's a lot of people, and I'm gonna be honest, it's a lot of people that's on this front line. And one of the things that I always say, don't get on this front line if you ain't gonna fight. Don't get on this front line if you ain't gonna take no hit. Don't get on this front line when the police push up, you push back. If you're gonna be on this front line and them racist, nasty, punk police is pushing up, you push the up.
What you just heard there, none of that is free speech. That is terrorism, incitement. You want to talk about incitement, that's what incitement sounds like. And if we didn't have such a feckless and useless government, that person would have been arrested on the spot and would be headed to federal prison right now. Again, that is terrorism. And then there's this from CNN. We talked about the passive voice. Well, here you go. Here's their headline and caption on Twitter. It says, 2 Chicago police officers pulled over a person suspected of having a gun, and all 3 ended up hospitalized with gunshot wounds, officials say. So, all 3 ended up hospitalized. How did that happen? Did bullets fall out of the sky randomly? How did they all end up with gunshot wounds? What do you mean they ended up? Well, it turns out, and you would have to read like 5 or 6 paragraphs into this article to see it. Turns out the officers tried to pull the guy over because he's committing a crime allegedly, and he shot them both. The suspect did. Then a 3rd police officer rushed into the scene to save those officers and shot the suspect. That's what happened. But even in the reporting of a violent criminal shooting police, CNN has to find a way to make it seem like police at least share part of the blame, or maybe that no one is to blame. So, enemy of the people. Yes, these are enemies of the people. It's perhaps one of maybe the truest thing that Trump has ever said in his life, describing the American media as an enemy of the people. I mean, they are. They're trying to get the American people, many American people, killed. I mean, they want a race war. They want violence and chaos and murder in the street. It's what they want. I cannot think of any other way to explain this. I mean, when you can't even bring yourself to just straight up report violent criminal shoots police officers, you can't even do that. Number 3, big shock over the weekend. Another big shock. It was a weekend of a lot of shocking events, none of them good, unfortunately. So another one, it was announced that Chadwick Boseman, who starred in Black Panther, also played Jackie Robinson, James Brown, he had quite a filmography in a relatively short career. He has died of cancer, colon cancer. Apparently he was diagnosed back in, I think it was 2018, and I believe he never told anyone publicly about his diagnosis. And he went on making movies and doing press, visiting sick children in a hospital, carrying on being a public figure, a celebrity, without ever letting on that he was dying of cancer, which is a really remarkable thing. I think it's a great example of courage and dignity. And it reminds me of a story. When I read about this, I immediately thought of a story that I think I've mentioned before in the Gulag Archipelago, Solzhenitsyn's book about the Soviet labor camp system. And one story he tells a lot of stories that really stick out, but one in particular about a guy who's in one of these prison camps, scheduled to be executed, but he convinces the guards to let his wife visit so he can see his wife one last time before he's killed. But the deal is that he's not allowed to tell his wife that he's going to be executed. So he can spend a couple days with her, but he can't tell her anything. And probably telling her would put her own life in jeopardy. So he spends a weekend with her, and he never lets on, and she never suspects anything. And then as soon as she leaves, they take him before the firing squad. So this is, a similar kind of thing. A man facing down his own mortality, experiencing presumably an incredible amount of inner anguish and grief and fear and panic and everything, yet carrying on with dignity and quiet resolve. So heartbreaking, but a great example for us all. Let's go number 4. I regret to inform you, my friends, that Michelle Obama, former First Lady, wealthy, powerful, admired, loved, famous, is nonetheless oppressed. And she's oppressed by you, it turns out. So, shame on you for oppressing someone who's 100 times richer and more powerful than you. How dare you? In a recent podcast, the former First Lady, according to the New York Post, this is what she said, telling her tale of oppression. She says, "Would I've been completely incognito during the 8 years in the White House, walking the dogs on the canal, people will come up and pet my dogs, but will not look me in the eye. They don't know it's me. What white folks don't understand is like that it's like that is so telling of how white America views people who are not like them. We don't exist. And when we do exist, we exist as a threat. And that's exhausting. What the white community doesn't understand about being a person of color in this nation is that there are daily slights in our workplaces where people talk over you or people don't even see you." And then later on, she says, "We were stopping to get ice cream, and I had told the Secret Service to stand back because we were trying to be normal, trying to go in. When I'm just a black woman, I notice that white people don't even see me. I'm standing there with 2 little black girls, another black female adult, they're in soccer uniforms, and a white woman cuts right in front of us, like she didn't even see us. The girl behind the counter almost took the order, and I had to stand up and was like, well, I'm not going to cause a scene with Michelle Obama." She continues, "So I stepped up and said," I don't know what that means. Anyway, she said, "I stepped up and said, 'Excuse me, you don't see us 4 people standing right here? You just jumped in line.' Obama said the woman didn't apologize. She never looked me in the eye. She didn't know it was me. All she saw was a black person or a group of black people, or maybe she didn't even see that because we were that invisible." Okay. Perhaps it never has occurred to Michelle that actually she's in no position to tell other groups of people what they do and don't understand. She says this about 3 times in this one, in 2 minutes of talking. She's about 3 times. She's like, what white people don't understand, what you white people don't realize. It's pretty disturbing that this woman and her husband were in charge of the country and had this attitude about a vast majority of the American population. Based on this, she has a very low opinion of white people. And a white person cuts in front of her, immediately assumes it's racist. So how the hell do you know what other people are thinking or feeling, Michelle? How do you know? Who are you to go around saying this? You have no freaking idea what other people are doing or what their motivations are or what's going on in their head. Who are you to assume that? She just prattles off, a dozen things that white people think and don't do and don't do. She is doing exactly what she accuses white people of doing to her by not letting them exist and be real and be their own people and speak for themselves. No, she's going to speak for them. The arrogance of that is just, it's off the Richter scale. It's one of the most arrogant people in the country is Michelle Obama. And I'm not just saying that based on only this. This is part of a pattern with her. Meanwhile, the traumatic experiences that she recounts, getting cut in front of in line, people not being overly friendly, getting talked over, that happens to everyone, Michelle. That's a normal thing for people. It happens to me. It happens to every person on earth. That is an utterly normal part of life for everyone, okay? We all deal with that, all of us. I could tell you stories of having people cut in front of me in line. It's happened to me. I guarantee you that. You know what I didn't do, though? I didn't assume that the person doing it was a bigot. Or I didn't make these damning assumptions about their entire life and existence and everything based on that. I assumed that they either just didn't see me because they weren't paying attention, they're up in their own head, and it's nothing racial or bigoted at all. Or worst case scenario, I assume that, in this moment, this person's acting like kind of a jerk. Doesn't mean that they're a horrible person elsewhere. I've done it myself. I bet you have too, Michelle. I bet there have been times when you've cut in front of people, knowingly or unknowingly. So we all deal with that, okay? All of us, all of that stuff. Oh, I got talked over. That happens to everyone. It is so normal. It's not, we don't like it. It's not fun. It's annoying. It is so normal, though. I can't stress this enough. It just happens to everyone all the time. It really does. I promise you that. And rather than making assumptions about entire races of people and telling white people what they do and don't experience, why don't you ask them? Why don't you let them speak for themselves and tell you what they experience? So you have something that happens to you every once in a while, you get cut in line, someone talks over you. Rather than assuming, oh, this never happens to anyone of that race, maybe ask them, oh, does this happen to you guys? And if they tell you yes, then just take them at their word. But here's the deal. Michelle Obama, she said she's pretending she wants to be treated just like everybody else. No, she wants the opposite. She's offended that she was treated like everybody else. She doesn't want that. She's offended not to be treated differently under the guise of being offended that she was treated differently. That's what this is really about. That's what this is always about. With this kind of thing. Okay. So, especially when it's a privileged, rich, powerful, wealthy person claiming that they're being oppressed, 99 times out of 100, what they're really going to be offended about when you get down into it is just that they, God forbid, got treated like a normal person once. Okay, number 5, the VMAs were last night. I somehow completely missed that they were on. I usually watch all the VMAs. I'm a big fan. I host a watch party usually when the VMAs are on. We all wear our pajamas and dance to the songs. It's a fun time. In any case, the Hollywood Reporter has the recap. First of all, there's a picture of Lady Gaga accepting her award for her performance in the latest Power Rangers film. It looks like she looks like a villain from Power Rangers, doesn't she? A little bit, or maybe Mortal Kombat. Anyway, the Hollywood Reporter says Keke Palmer hosted the show, which aired Sunday night. The Weeknd won Video of the Year for Blinding Lights at Sunday's. Actually, I think it's misspelled because it's missing an E for The Weeknd. It's really spelled Weekend. The Weeknd won Video of the Year. Other winners Sunday night included Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande, BTS, Taylor Swift, HER, Maluma, Machine Gun Kelly, and Megan Thee Stallion. I don't know who any of these people are. I know Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga. Those two I know. Grande, she's the one who licked the donut. She's the donut licker, so I know her. HER and Maluma? What? They sound like skin conditions a little bit. Gaga's other wins included Artist of the Year and Song of the Year for Rain on Me, her collaboration with Ariana Grande. The Weeknd also won Best R&B. Keke Palmer hosted the show, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm trying to see if there's any big... Okay, here we go. Later on in the show, Palmer showed off her comedic chops by portraying her alter egos, including one she's featured on her TikTok. While visiting different spots in New York, such as the Bronx Zoo, where she could see the, quote, the cats from the WAP video. I guess that's supposed to be a joke. That's her showing off her comedic chops. Palmer encounters her Southern Belle alter ego, Lady Miss. At one point, she jokes, "You're cattier than Carol Baskin." Oh, man. This is bad. "You're cattier than Carol Baskin." That was actually a joke that made it into this professional production. Oh, man. I went, when I was in 7th grade, my school had a talent show. And there was like an 11-year-old who got up and did a stand-up performance. And all of his material was way better than "You're cattier than Carol Baskin." So unfortunately, I'm sad I missed that show. We all missed it. You might say there are more important things going on in the world. I don't know. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.